Afternoon, everyone, and very welcome to this month's cafe that is all about glowing through the changed skin and hair health in menopause. So we're going to be diving into two things that I think most of us feel very sort of passionate about. It's very important for majority and sort of start slipping through our fingers as we transition through menopause, our skin and hair. There are lots of questions, really relevant, really good questions that have come in, and we will sort of take that this webinar takes that form. We'll tackle basically the common questions that both I've heard in the clinic multiple times. I hear from my colleagues that they're sort of ask these questions, and you've sent in. And of course, you can ask them at the end, or if there's something as we go through that is sort of important to you and it's raised the question, you can feel free to stop me and ask your questions. But these are the type of questions that we do get asked quite a lot. Why does my hair feel like straw? So it's very dry. Why do I have started to have an itchy patch on chest, on arm, on legs? And why have my wrinkles doubled overnight? That's the sort of flair of the questions that we get. So hormones are the hidden puppeteers, really. Let's start with the big picture. Always starts with estrogen and progesterone, the two female sex hormones. They are our skin and hair's best friends. So during perimenopause and menopause, of course, as they continue to lower and we become deficient in them in menopause, we begin to see all the changes in hair and skin, as well as all other symptoms that you probably know about menopause. So estrogen, just to sort of home in on estrogen and to find out exactly how this hormone is important. It's really important in sort of helps the collagen production, which plumps up the skin, and it also keeps the hair in the growing phase for longer. We will go through the hair growth cycle in the next slide so that we can see its action. And progesterone is really important for our skin and hair because it balances oil production, and it also is an anti-inflammatory. You may have sort of heard of progesterone as an adjunct treatment for some of the inflammatory diseases like osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, but it's the same with the skin as well. So people who have a predisposition to inflammatory skin conditions like eczema, like rosacea, that can sort of exacerbate the fall in progesterone levels. And really that starts from perimenopause, when people start having more anovulatory cycles, so a cycle that is without ovulation, which is very common, from any time from early mid-40s onwards. So with the drop in these two hormones, it's not difficult to understand why we begin to notice thinning hair. The skin becomes more sensitive and drier, more sensitive to even the products that you used to use before and used to really enjoy their effect. And with that, with the thinning of skin, with the drier skin, more wrinkles, itchiness, and even sort of rosacea flare up. It can be worsening of an existing rosacea, or there's a lot of initial diagnosis of rosacea at the time of menopause. Women generally lose about 30% of their collagen in the first 5 years after their menopause. And these are the sort of years where you start noticing a lot of sort of signs of aging, the visible signs of aging as well. Now, looking at the hair cycle in a little bit more detail, these are the 4 different stages of hair cycle. We don't have to go into too much detail on them, but just very generally, the first stage, or anagen, is when your hair is actively growing. It's where most of your hair spends its time in, and we want this to be the longest possible. It should be around 3 to 5 years, but of course, with the lack of the hormones, that sort of shortens this time. And catagen is when the hair stops growing and is starting to get ready to go into the rest stage. It takes a couple of weeks. The third stage telogen is when it's completely sitting quietly in your scalp and nothing is happening. This can be a few months. And then it's the final stage of hair cycle, which is the exogen, and that's when the old hair falls out, making room for new hair to grow. So what we can do to sort of help our hair follicles to remain healthy, for hair to remain in that growth phase for longest. One of them is sort of by nutrients, by stress management, and also by HRT, of course, by restoring the balance in the hormones that are missing that causes the shortening of the growth stage of the cycle. So a protein-rich diet with omega-3, zinc, biotin, iron, they're the sort of diet that you can enjoy that benefits your hair and skin as well. So the picture there basically is that there are more, of course, foods like that, but anything that is protein-rich and rich in omega-3. Scalp massage to stimulate blood flow, that can be included. So you can include some hair tonics within that. There are over-the-counter hair tonics, and also we now have access to genetically personalized hair tonics. I don't know, you may have seen in our more recent newsletters that we have access to genetic testing, where a kit comes to you, you take a sample of your mucosal membrane, just like it's like a mouth swab. And a couple of weeks later, you get a very detailed and personalized both results from the sort of things that may have caused your hair thinning to what can be formulated for, in your case, to benefit it. So the hair tonic can be very precise and personalized to that genetic information that has been gathered. Minoxidil is a medication that is usually used to treat high blood pressure, but it can be added to hair tonics and massaged into the scalp, and it improves blood supply to the hair follicles. And in majority of cases, especially for those who have sensitivity to this, so it acts actually as a treatment, it can have a very visible effect on the thickness of hair. And of course, HRT can help for some women for prolonging the growth phase of the hair cycle. So that's both estrogen and progesterone in the HRT. And it can be systemic HRT, or it can be HRT that is added to the hair tonic. Now we've had, I think, I get asked this quite a lot in the clinics, and I think there are a couple of questions that have come in regarding this. Does my hair texture change, or can hair texture change? And it's absolutely yes. So the hair can become drier, curlier, frizzier, and that's to do with the sort of the balance of oil production. So with the fall in estrogen level, there's less oil production, hair shaft becomes drier, and so it can become frizzier and curlier and more dry. So how you can help it is by applying hydrating masks. And I think we'll go into the questions and the comments that you've sent in, because I think it's really helpful maybe for everyone here to hear those things. But hair masks and leave-in conditioners are your really good friends at this point. So why is the skin, why does it become drier? Why do we start having skin sensitivities? That's from skin sensitivities to it could be just to weather, to air, or to particular products that you were not sensitive to before. Now, estrogen is a promoter of hyaluronic acid, which is a hydrator basically, collagen and sebum oil production. And of course, without it, then we get very dry, dull, thin skin. So it's not just the dryness, the moisture of it, but actually the thickness of skin changes as well, which then becomes more prone to wrinkles. So using gentle hydrating cleansers without foam, because foam is very drying, and without soap is very useful. And of course, then layering that hyaluronic acid and oil that you're missing. You can look for products that have ceramide and glycerin. These are products that attract moisture and lock it in and strengthen the skin's protective barrier. And of course, then niacinamide is very, very important. Niacinamide is basically vitamin B3. It is a versatile skincare ingredient. It helps strengthen the skin's barrier. It improves the ability to retain moisture, and it protects against environmental damage. Additionally, it also has like anti-inflammatory properties, which can soothe redness and irritation. So it also helps hyperpigmentation. And I'll talk about it a little bit in the next slides, but hyperpigmentation is something that a good majority of women complain of as they go through perimenopause and menopause, very similar to the hyperpigmentation that some people get during pregnancy when progesterone levels are very high. Now, the hormones are funny in the way how the levels and what symptoms arises from those levels. So often, when you have quite a lot or excessive quantities of a hormone, it can mimic the symptoms of deficiency of a hormone. So it can become a little bit confusing, and that's why it's good to run some tests if there's any questions about it. But going back to niacinamide, it does help to fade dark spots, whether they're on hands or face, and it evens out the skin tone as well as improving the elasticity of skin, reducing the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles. And SPF 30 plus is essential daily, regardless of whether it's summertime or winter, how much sunshine you feel is out there. But it should be applied on daily basis throughout the year. The menopausal skin does become more sun sensitive, so you must protect it with SPF. Now, itchy skin or formication is another relatively common symptom that we get. Sometimes it arises because of the extent of the dryness that the skin is in. So putting the moisture back in really helps. But in particular, this sensation of insects crawling or skin becoming extremely sensitive, like pins and needles, even to very mild wind, it can kickstart a sort of the neurological sensation of pins and needles. That's due to the sensitivity of the nerve endings, that the skin has become really thin, and so the nerve endings are closer to the skin surface, and so then therefore you feel any changes to even environmental change like wind or weather more easily. But this sensation of insects crawling under the skin can be very disturbing, and it is a very, in the absence of any risk factors, it's a really good time to introduce HRT, because it can really help with this particular symptom. And can HRT help your skin? Well, absolutely yes, because the all the symptoms that we described so far, with the appearance of aging, skin thinning, the sensitivity, hair thinning, wrinkles, etc., they arise because of the fall in the two main female sex hormones. So of course, if you start to replace it, especially if it's starting to replace it at the at the time before the wrinkles have appeared, it helps. It's better at preventing the signs of aging. But at any point, of course, if it's for other reasons like itchiness or insects crawling under the skin, or for hyperpigmentation, etc., it can help. It does boost the collagen by up to 30%. And of course, it helps with elasticity of skin, with the thickness and hydration. And you can just have, you don't necessarily have to take systemic HRT. So for those who've chosen not to take systemic HRT, or maybe they can't take it, but they can take localized HRT, that can be formulated in a skin, like a facial cream. So just very sort of overview of what, because again, these are the sort of types of things, inquiries that come in. What should I be using during the day, in the evening? You basically need a non-drying, non-foaming cleanser. You then need to apply something that keeps the hydration in, like hyaluronic acid. You need a good moisturizer to make sure that the skin is not too dry, and then an SPF to make sure that there's, your skin is protected from sun damage. And in the evening, of course, then you repeat the cleansing process, and you can apply retinoids. Now, retinoids, I've put in brackets if tolerated, because they are quite strong, and they can cause a lot of dryness and redness. They boost collagen production quite considerably. They reduce fine lines and wrinkles, improve skin tone, and they do help with, some people, you may have heard of retinoid use in much younger women for purposes of treatment of acne or hyperpigmentation, because it helps skin to shed, and then new skin cells are produced, which then is fresher and more sort of with more elasticity. But it does need to be done, prescribed and used under the care of a healthcare provider that understands this, because it really needs to start slowly, and you have to at low dose, and you need to go slowly as you build up the dosage of retinoid or retinoic acid, because of, again, to avoid redness, peeling, dryness. And you must always use a high sunscreen protection when using retinoids, because the skin does become more sensitive to the sun, and it can actually cause worsening of hyperpigmentation. And then, of course, the hyperpigmentation of skin, which is related to hormonal fluctuations. These are the types of products that can really help. The high dose and pure vitamin C, azelaic acid, and again, our friend niacinamide, that is really good to be used in a postmenopausal skin. Now, these are the types of things that can be added to a personalized skin product, like facial cream, depending on what the problem is. So if for women who have, for example, hyperpigmentation, acne, and they also want to do something about their wrinkles, that can be very personalized in those facial creams. And professional options, these are like the sort of things that they're out there in the market. Microneedling, again, helps to rejuvenate, helps to stimulate sort of new cell production in skin layer. Laser therapy, and as I explained earlier on, you can have bioidentical hormones. So these are hormones that you may know as the biological hormones that are compounded for you, tailor-made. You may already be on something like that, like lozenge or a systemic cream, or first a fast absorb tablet that are using as a systemic HRT. But it's good to know that you can have some of these hormones, for example, estradiol, or even progesterone, depending on what the problem is, and they can very sort of personalize it and custom make it with various different things like niacinamide or vitamin C, depending on what we want to achieve. So you can really make a huge difference to the condition of your skin, and start, slow down a few of these conditions by eating really healthy, good fats, which is basically, I've put there things like salmon, walnuts, olive oil, and antioxidants like berries and turmeric. Now, you can have that as a supplement, some of these things, or you can just eat it. It doesn't matter if you don't have any gut issues, you have good absorption, and there's no other conditions, you can just eat the food rather than take the supplement. And of course, hydration, both by ingesting, lots of water taking in, and also hydration on the skin, which is through the hyaluronic acid and other elements that we went through. And of course, to manage cortisol level, the terrible hormone that helps us to cope with stress, but at the same time causes so many various health problems, like it's the root cause of inflammation in the body. So it's the enemy of your skin, really. And cortisol can go up even in the absence of any sort of visible factors that you can see. You may think, "Wow, actually, I'm not stressed. I don't know why." But it's sometimes worth checking that and making sure that your cortisol hasn't been raised, even because it can go up, for if there's any problems, if you have broken sleep, for example, if you're not getting enough sleep. But it can also be raised just through the fact that you're going through perimenopause and menopause. So, your body perceives the hormonal fluctuations of menopause and perimenopause as if it was threat, and it then secretes excessive quantities of cortisol, and that can accelerate signs of aging and inflammation, causing things like eczema, rosacea, etc. I'm gonna stop there. We've come to the end of presentation, but I know there are many good questions. But before we even go into that, Agni, perhaps we can just ask anyone if they have any questions right now. Otherwise, you can start reading the questions that have come in.
Yeah, sure. So Laila, it does look like the chat box is empty.
Okay,
So I will
great.
start with the questions that were submitted at the time
Yeah.
of registering for the cafe. So the first question we have is, my hair started to turn very curly around the time I started taking Utrogestan. Could they be related?
So Utrogestan, of course, is the progesterone body identical progesterone capsule that some of you may be on. And as I explained during the presentation, the change in texture tends to be because of the changes in your hormone levels rather than as a side effect. It's not it's not a common side effect of Utrogestan, so no.
Thank you. How to eliminate hair loss?
Oh, that's a very good, very relevant question. How to eliminate hair loss. So as I said, you have there are many different ways. So first of all, we need to look at the history and other conditions that may have contributed to this hair thinning and hair loss. Don't forget that during perimenopause, with the fall in the female hormones, you can that can actually start disturbing your thyroid hormone. And thyroid is, your hair is very sensitive to thyroid hormone. So if you are then suboptimal with your thyroid hormone, that can cause it. Also, at the time of perimenopause, you can have very heavy cycles, and that can result in iron deficiency, B12 deficiency. That can contribute to hair loss as well. But if you wanted to, dig very deeply or look at it very scientifically, I would recommend getting that genetic testing to find out what specific things could be going wrong. Why I was searching instead of just like throwing in various treatments blindly. So that's very specific. It will tell you, like, if minoxidil, for example, will help or not, or whether there is any point of taking B12 or iron supplement, etc. So it's looking at hair thinning and trying to find a solution. You need to basically bring it up in your consultation. We have to look at your history, look for any other reasons, do some tests, including this genetic testing if you want to go ahead for that personalized hair solution, which is ultimately really beneficial.
Thank you, Laila. We also have a comment. No questions, just interested to hear the ways to keep skin fresh and healthy. Wanted to also share the use of lead masks and say it's made a big difference.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know much about lead masks, I have to be honest, but yeah, well, I mean, hydrating lead, masks, and if that's worked for you, then that's great. Yeah.
Should I be wearing more SPF now that I'm postmenopausal?
Every day of the year, you should be wearing SPF 30 plus. Yeah.
Can HRT help with hair growth?
Absolutely, it can. if the I mean, in a postmenopausal woman, it can. It really with with skin and hair stuff, it's very similar to like when we start using HRT for prevention of disease, like so for prevention of osteoporosis, Alzheimer's, heart disease, the derangement of cholesterol that we see during menopause, even like metabolic diseases like diabetes, etc. With all these things, there is much better to start it during perimenopause. So it's the quicker you started and you step in, the better it will work. Because once, for example, if you catch osteopenia, for example, a step before osteoporosis, and you start introducing balance and the correct quantity of HRT, you can actually delay or prevent osteoporosis. But once it started, it is difficult to reverse it, but inevitably it will help in reducing the speed of it.
I'm seeing more facial hair than before, especially on my chin. Is that hormonal, and can anything be done about it?
So yeah, I mean, it is a common issue actually at menopause that women start seeing. So even people may have a condition from past, like PCOS, polycystic ovaries, or excessive testosterone, etc. But at time of menopause, because of the lack of estrogen, you have relative excess testosterone. So although your testosterone level may not have changed, and in fact it may have even fallen, but you can have functionally you have more testosterone, and that can result in hair growth.
Can hormone fluctuations cause changes in how often we need to wash our hair? Mine seems to be greasier faster than it used to.
So again, yes, it can cause that. So it can be greasier, it can be much drier. And one of the reasons why it can be greasier is the effect of testosterone. And as I said, it's a sort of relative excess of testosterone compared to the fall in estrogen level. Another thing is that our adrenal hormones also go through fluctuations during menopause. You can have excessive quantities of cortisol, excessive quantities of DHEA, and that can convert to testosterone and cause the greasiness. Yeah.
Thank you, Laila. We have a question just coming now. Is there a general time frame for seeing improvements in your hair texture after starting HRT?
I mean, texture of your if there is a particular no, I can't give you a timeline for that is uniform for everybody. It really depends how severe that texture changes. It depends on the dosage of HRT that you're on. Has that been considered in when we're formulating the dosage, or do you need a specific sort of localized treatment like a hair tonic rather than a systemic one? So if there's a slight sort of dryness, curliness, or frizziness that has resulted from lack of estrogen and we replace it, it's usually, within the first 3-4 months you see a difference.
Thank you. Are there any particular ingredients or skincare products you recommend for menopausal skin, especially for hydration and elasticity?
I think we went through that during the presentation. So I went through the list of hyaluronic acid, niacinamide, yes. So it's all there. And we will have that, right? The presentation.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a copy.
Does collagen production really slow down in menopause, and can HRT help with that?
Yes, and yes, absolutely. So I presented that about 30% fall with menopause, and HRT can help to restore it. Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, how long will I be in menopause?
So menopause doesn't end. It's a retrospective diagnosis. It's 12 months after you haven't had any menstrual cycles, and then from then on, for the rest of your life, you are postmenopausal. So it's not something that is after menopause you are in a postmenopausal state.
If already taking HRT, is there a test that can be performed to ensure the correct hormone levels?
Yes, absolutely. We do that quite often. So you can have a blood test on HRT to see what the rate of absorption is and what the balance of your hormones are. We generally recommend taking your HRT and having the blood test about 4 or 5 hours after you've taken it, and you don't need to be fasting.
And we've got how to gain muscles and lose body fat effectively.
With your lifestyle changes, so exercise, weight-bearing exercises, with and diet. So, but you know, if you really want to build muscle and lose fat, you need a program but essentially it involves eating more protein, good fat, omega-3 that we discussed during the presentation, and then yeah, the weight-bearing exercises, the resistant exercises.
Can collagen supplements help with improving hair and skin?
You know, collagen supplements is quite controversial because we haven't got any proof that the ingestion of collagen actually has a good delivery to the layers of skin that it needs to be deposited in. So I don't know, and I don't think anybody scientifically knows this yet. But there's a lot of, like, I know, like, you know, on social media and some celebrities talk a lot about collagen supplements, but there's no proof that ingesting collagen
Thank you,
results in.
Laila. I've covered all the questions that were submitted at the time of registering, but we still have some time, so feel free to unmute yourself or you can pop the questions in the chat box and I'll read them out.
Yeah, well, that's good. There were good questions.
Yeah, it does look like we don't have any questions coming through, so I'll
Good.
stop the recording now and thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good afternoon. Bye,
Hi,
everyone.
Laila. Just one more question come in. Hi, my hair is like a straw and it's very frustrating. What do you suggest?
So I think that was one of the questions on the on my first slide, actually, because we do get asked this. So it's the lack of estrogen and progesterone that causes that. Progesterone is an oil producer, and with the lack of these hormones, the hair texture can change. It can become very dry. And so, you know, if you're already on HRT, that can be sort of adjusted if you haven't seen an improvement, or you can, on top of the systemic HRT, you can actually have localized hormone, like hair tonics with different, whether it's hormones or different elements that lock in the moisture in to be made for you. So these are the main things. So it's hormonal, both systemic and localized as a hair tonic.
Thank you, Laila. So I will now stop the recording and thanks again, everyone who attended.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone.